What is going on, Scan fam? Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Current. We are joined here today with Jordan Patapoff. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, now Jordan is the Director of Ecosystem at Quicknode, an awesome company to have on the Crypto Current podcast today. As you can see, we've got a little change of scenery. Some of you might recognize this. We are actually at the CoinScan headquarters in Tel Aviv, Israel. So without further ado, let's get on with the podcast. Jordan, thanks again for joining us today, and Dennis, go ahead and kick us off.
Awesome. Yeah, well, again, Jordan, much appreciated. I know we met at ETH Denver, and overall excited to continue the conversation and share some of the stories about where you work, some of the things that you do, and let's go ahead and get this started with just introducing yourself. What is your background, and maybe what are you responsible at Quicknode?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again for having me. Really a pleasure to be here. So I'm the Director of Ecosystem at Quicknode, and I guess a little bit about my role. So, I am on the ecosystem team where I run our startup program. And what we do for the startup program is we partner with VCs and startup organizations to help their portfolio companies. And this could be through credits to get started building on Quicknode. It could be through technical office hours, workshops, investor introduction, pitch competitions, one of which we did about 2 weeks ago. These are really great. We do them on Twitter Spaces. Last time we had 6 finalists come in and pitch to a panel of judges from AWS, Dust Labs, Orange DAO, Variant Fund, and then this time around, the winner took home an $80,000 in prizes, $10,000 of which was cash. And so it was actually ETH Pass, if you're familiar with them. So really great event, really high energy, and it's pretty unique, I think, in the fact that we do it on Twitter Spaces, and so we were trying to do something a little bit different that was I think turned out to be a pretty great event. And so that in a nutshell, I think kind of encompasses what I do, on the ecosystem team, with respect to the startup program. Prior to joining Quicknode, I've been in the startup space and kind of been in tech for a while. Prior to Quicknode, I was actually at AWS, not quite a startup, but at AWS for about 4 years, where I worked closely with Y Combinator and Techstars founders. And so, that was the startup angle, kind of big company, but still getting to work with, cutting edge tech and kind of really great founders out there. Did that for about 4 years. And then before that, I founded a company called Clip, CLYP, simple audio sharing platform. Raised a little bit of some money, went through Techstars as well. And then I worked as a software engineer at a handful of other places before that. So, kind of been all over the place just in terms of, starting my career out, computer science degree, hands-on keyboard, individual contributor, writing a lot of code. The Clip, I built, 90% of that, 80% of that, wrote most of that code. And then, kind of now later in my career, focusing more on helping startups and founders and anything that I could do to really help their journey as they're building their companies.
Cool. Can you kind of fill us in on what your day-to-day looks like as the Director of Ecosystem?
Yeah, and it's just, no 2 days are the exact same. And I think that's kind of true for any startup. So, Quicknode, we're now a little bit north of 100. I think we're at about 120 people now. So, seeing the team almost doubled in size since I've joined. So that's one of the things that I love about earlier stage startups, compared to like a big company like Amazon, is that, you do get the opportunity to wear multiple hats. And whenever you see, opportunity you just kind of jump in and do it, regardless of what your role is. But, that being said, a lot of what I do is working directly with founders. And so this could be, one-on-one meetings where, we're going through, we're reviewing pitch decks, we're coming up with investor target lists and helping with fundraising. Or it could be talking through the product and giving product feedback, or even sometimes, introducing them to the product team at Quicknode and the engineering team at Quicknode, because there's certain features and parts of the platform that they want to see us implement. And so I'd say that's kind of a big part of it. And then I'd say, the other part of it is building out programming, and this could be Quick Pitch, the pitch competition that we were talking about a little bit earlier. So, lining up partners for that and kind of structuring it and speccing it out, because it was something that really we had never done before. And, of course, there's a lot of people that do pitch competitions, but I think never this exact format on Twitter Spaces that I've seen before. And so, building programs like that from scratch. And so that kind of is, I'd say, the bulk of it, working directly with founders, helping founders, and then, building programming that helps support the startup ecosystem, more at scale.
Cool. That's awesome. And for some of the folks that don't know what Quicknode is, just to kind of bring it back, can you give us like a quick summary of Quicknode and like any of the kind of highlights that you think some of the audience here should know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are the developer, we are the blockchain development platform. So we make it dead simple for developers to read data from and write data to the blockchain. And right now, as we're recording this podcast, we support 19 different chains. And, that's, I think, one thing that really differentiates us is that, the pace of innovation as it relates to the new chains that we're adding to our platform all the time. That's something that we watch very closely. And, we're kind of on pace to do one new chain every month or every other month. And so I would expect that, between now and the end of the year, we might have, 4 to 6 new chains, and we'll be at, call it 25, kind of knock on wood by the end of the year. And so, the world that we live in today is, we want founders and startups to get out there and build. We don't want them to have to, worry about, call it the undifferentiated heavy lifting that's associated with spinning up a server and installing the operating system and keeping it up to date, and then installing your Node client software, and then you just have one node, and that's good if you have a small project that you're just tinkering around with. But then, what if you want to, you go live and your app goes viral, and next thing you know, instead of doing 100 requests a day, you're doing 100 million requests a day. Well, one of the really great things about the Quicknode platform is we handle all of that scaling for you right out of the box. Where alternatively you'd have to think about setting up a load balancer and clusters of nodes, and then if you want to go global, having multiple data centers spread across the globe. With us, it's one click of the mouse. You have an endpoint that you plug in to your code. You start reading from and writing to that endpoint, and we handle all of that behind the scenes work for you.
Cool. Do you have maybe some examples of some reasons that prospecting startups would choose Quicknode as opposed to maybe some of your competitors?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what it comes down to is that, if you look at the founders that built Quicknode, before they built, and founded Quicknode, they built and scaled a CDN, a content delivery network. And so very good at building low latency, high performance networks. And that's been ingrained in the DNA of our company since day one. And so, I think as you look into Quicknode, a lot of that transferred over, and a lot of that expertise that was developed, is now alive and still in our product today. And so, as you build an application, as you start to scale over time, most applications are very sensitive to latency, and that could be, through DEXs, or it could be, through really wallets, anything. I mean, you want to send a transaction and you want to immediately, have that written to the chain, and you want to immediately be able to see the result of that written to the chain. And so, it's the good thing is once you integrate with Quicknode, as your product starts to scale, as you start to grow, that you're getting a best of breed network that is going to scale with you, and will be, world class in terms of its performance.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I used to work for Cloudflare, so very familiar with content delivery networks. In terms of the biggest challenges Quicknode is solving for, I know you mentioned kind of that scalability aspect. Is there any additional challenges for organizations that you guys are a solvent for?
Yeah, really good question. So this is kind of more on the larger enterprise, and I think there are startups out there too. But we're one of the only, if the only, node provider that I'm aware of that's SOC 2 compliant. And so, a lot of people that are building, financial applications, that's a pretty big lift to go through and get SOC compliance. And so, we've done that. You're able to leverage that, right out of the box for the applications that you're building. And so, I would say that, that's that's as it pertains to our core API, which is, basically our RPC nodes that we make available. But, there's other things that we're building that make life way easier for our developers and for our customers. And so one of them is our, higher level enhanced APIs, our ERC20, token API, where you can query the balance of a particular wallet address or query all of the transactions that have taken place associated with a particular wallet address. If you were to do that with pure low level or RPC calls, it could be hundreds or hundreds of thousands of calls to do that. So we could do that with one API call with our ERC20 token APIs. And then I think one of the other kind of cutting edge products that we've launched recently is called Quick Alerts. And so this is the ability to set up webhooks and other type of events that you can listen for from the blockchain. So if you want to say, whenever a Bored Ape, transfers, from one wallet to another, it can fire off that webhook. And right now that's just, not to get too technical, but just like an HTTP post, back to your backend server. But it can also be in the form of an email or, a Slack message or a Telegram message. And so, the ability to have, the flexibility to listen to events that take place on chain, without having to poll over and over and over again to get that data, you set up that expression and we can send a notification to you whenever an event happens on chain.
So I'm curious as to the flexibility of those expressions that the users are able to set within those on-chain calls.
Yeah, so with Quick Alerts, the expressions that you set are fully customizable. So, it's really, the ability to listen to any event that might take place on chain.
Cool. That's awesome. And I really get curious with some of these large organizations, as you guys are scaling, are you able to chat about any specific partnership or people that you guys are working with or are leveraging your platform on the biggest scale possible right now?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so some of the customers that we work with that kind of are the bigger enterprise side of things. Twitter uses us. We have Nansen, Dune, 1inch, Coinbase. So, a lot of, really big institutions that need, best in class performance, low latency, that need to have, a support team that we have that's, available 24/7 around the clock on Slack, whenever questions, should come up. And, yeah, those are some of the bigger names that we're working with, and of course a lot in the pipeline that I can't talk about. But those are some of the ones that we are publicly referenceable today.
That's awesome. And I know you mentioned about startups. A lot of the guests that watch our podcast, they're in that initial stages of building out their organizations. Do you guys have any programs? I know you mentioned it earlier on in this podcast, but can you talk a bit about some of the services or help or guidance or assistance that you guys provide to these startups?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as a part of the startup program that I run, we partner with as many VCs and startup organizations out there that are focused on Web3 and investing back into the Web3 ecosystem. And so, this could be Y Combinator, Techstars, Alliance DAO, Polygon, Village. It also kind of more on the traditional VC side of things, QED, 10T, 776. So through the partnerships with these VCs and with these accelerators and incubators, you not only get access to Quicknode credits, so you can build on our platform without having to spend cash out of pocket. Because, as a former founder, I know, how precious runway and burn rate is, especially early on in a company life cycle, where every dollar matters. And so, that's something that we do to kind of help our builders and our founders that are, building their companies. And then, on top of that, outside of just credits, we offer, one-on-one technical help. So if there's anything that you're building and you need, kind of another set of eyes to look at the architecture or the platform that you're building out, your implementation, is it optimized for cost? Are you minimizing the number of calls that you need to make? That sort of thing. We're, more than happy to kind of step in and help out there. And then, another one, as we start working closer, sometimes founders are out there, they're fundraising. And, I love kind of standing in the middle of, having founders on one side of the table that are using our startup startup program, but then also we're partnered with now 100 plus different VCs, and they want to see the latest and greatest, founders and builders and projects and startups out there.
I'm sure it's a very case-by-case basis, but I'm curious, are there any major requirements that is a must-have for projects looking to get into that?
Yeah, so most of the time that we partner through, the accelerators and incubators, and then also the VCs that we work with. And so, that's usually, how we get connected with the founders and the startups that we work with. But, that being said, there's a lot of really great programs out there, for founders that are just getting started, that maybe they haven't received their first check yet, but they could go do, Y Combinator Startup School. Which we're partnered with, for example. Anyone can go sign up, today, right now, you can go do Startup School and, get access to, not only the Y Combinator Startup School network, but a lot of a lot of what we provide through our startup program.
That's awesome. In terms of goals for the long term, as you're seeing the company's direction as an internal employee, where's some of the focus been shifted? Or I know we're in the bear market, so maybe certain things have been reprioritized. Can you kind of share some of those things and maybe some of the kind of reorganization or potential markets that you guys are trying to break into?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think for us, we're in a pretty unique perspective where we have the luxury of being able to remain long-term focused, and I think that's for a multitude of different reasons. One of which is a, infrastructure provider, we're a picks and shovel business, right? And so, if you look back at, you mentioned the bear market and, as crypto prices were tanking, we're in a better spot now, kind of than where we were at the trough of it all. But, when crypto prices were at their worst, we saw, and if you look at the Electric Capital Developer Report, developer activity was close to an all-time high. And so, for us, that's what's really important to us is developer activity, who's building, and how can we help support them. And so, we haven't shifted, kind of our strategy or reprioritized in terms of how we focus on startups and our early stage customers. We're here through the bear market, we're here through the bull market to help support.
That's awesome. It's great to see that there's still a lot of organizations building in the bear. It's a good sifting process and a way to filter out some of those projects that are not here for the long term. And so I like to see that you guys are part of that build, and it makes me happy to see that this innovation still exists and is continuing kind of the same momentum as if it was the bull market. Some of our viewers also just want to know how to break into crypto. So I kind of want to shift a little bit of, you're now in crypto from a big tech organization. What was that process for you? If you can guide us through some of the things that you were thinking about. I know a lot of people think about volatility and job security and all these different things. If you can speak to that a bit, I think this could be extremely valuable for some of the viewers here as well.
Yeah, wow, that's such a great question because, I've kind of always been, in love with startups, ever since I graduated school with a computer science degree. And I think, part of what opened up my eyes is and there's absolutely no shame in this, but when I was in college, I interned at Deutsche Bank to help support their gas trading operations. And, I was wearing kind of this suit to work every day and just doing a certain thing that I didn't see myself in that type of corporate environment long term. And I think it took, that internship to really open up my eyes to say, okay, this stuffy corporate world is not for me. And so, I've always had an appetite for risk. I've always had an appetite for startups. And so, with the exception of when I was at AWS for 4 years, I've been in startups my entire life. And it's you think about risk and you think about, for me, when I was right out of college, I was just, a single guy, it didn't really matter. But now, things have changed and I'm married and I have 2 kids and I think about risk a little bit differently. But, I think what it is I realized at the end of the day that, I have, as a software engineer, historically and kind of, the work that I've done with startups, not all startups work out. And I'm here at Quicknode because I have full faith and I know it's going to work out over the long term. But, let's say that for some reason it doesn't, right? I'm always going to be able to go back and use the skills that I've developed and go back and find other things to do. It's not like I'm going to be out of a job and homeless on the street, if this doesn't work out like I expect it to. And so, I say all that to say, I've always had a pretty big risk appetite, and I think you just have to have, confidence in your skills. And I think the other thing I would say is, like, when you go and you work for a startup, like, my past year at Quicknode is probably what I've learned on the job, and is probably equivalent to like 4 years at any other company, because like we move so fast.
I'm curious, you just talked about being in startups and always having a hunger for some risk, which I think everyone in Web3 has to a certain extent. But I am curious, were you in crypto before your time at Quicknode?
Yeah, it's always been something that's been interesting to me, and I look back and I think just like everyone else in the world has that story of like, I was kicking the tires with Bitcoin back in the day, and this was actually, right around when right after I had graduated college. I worked for a startup called U-Ship. It's a transportation and logistics marketplace, and there was a whole host of us that were, kind of interested in crypto. And so, it was always something that I paid attention to. And like, I kicked myself every day because there was one of my coworkers that was like, hey, so one of my buddies is spinning up a mining pool. We're going to go buy, a whole bunch of like ASIC miners. And it's like $1,000 if you want to get in. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. But, keep me in the loop. I want to, keep up on it. And like, I went to go catch up with that buddy the other day, and I'm like, so what have you been doing for the past few years? He's like, just living off crypto and like, doing projects around the house. I'm like, okay, so I look back and just like everyone else kind of kicked myself for not getting, more involved earlier on. But I'd say from a technology standpoint, I've always been very enthusiastic about it. And like, one of the things that I'm sure like a lot of other people have, I've rabbit holed probably for, 20 plus hours. It's like, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? It's just like the mystery that surrounds that is still, to me, one of the most exciting things about like the Bitcoin space in particular. And so, I was very big just kind of from a technology standpoint into Bitcoin. And then, Ethereum, kind of came around, and I never got super into it and like realized the power of it at the time. And it was only, a couple of years ago, actually like a few years before I was considering joining Quicknode, that I saw that, the ecosystem has flourished. Like, it's not just Bitcoin anymore, right? And I'm sure like you say that today, everyone's like, duh. But, for me, it's kind of like, early on, that's kind of all that I knew and cared about. And so, my thinking has evolved there. And it's just like we've gone from this, kind of not naive, but, very basic cryptocurrency into this fully featured, economy, essentially, that's built around blockchain technology. Just like so much that's evolved since then is just keeping it just makes it very interesting. It's like the pace of innovation here in the Web3 and in the blockchain space is unlike anything, that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, a lot of folks always mention, like, I'm not technical enough, or I don't have a good understanding of crypto. What is kind of your response and maybe some advice there? Because as you know, the UI, the onboarding is not as easy as we want it to be quite yet. I think we're approaching that space, but we're not there yet. We need to build a lot to get there. What would you recommend to some of these people that have that kind of will to want to learn, but also really don't want to get too complex in terms of the technical background and information there?
Yeah, that's a good question, because crypto, blockchain technology is inherently technical. And so, I think, a lot of that just kind of, we as builders need to do, like you said, a better job of abstracting away all that complexity so it becomes easier to use over time. What I would say is take a look at, where you can provide, the most value. I don't know a better way to say that, but, where is the highest and best use of your time, and focus on that. And if the highest and best use of your time is as a software engineer, well, then you kind of have to know all the technical ins and outs of it. But if the highest and best use of your time is marketing, or if it's in business development, then you may not need to know, all of the intricacies of, the difference between a sidechain and a roll-up, and all these, different considerations. And so, I would say find your niche, find your area, and go super deep there. And of course, you're going to have a, call it level 100 understanding of the tech and of the space. And, it's not going to hurt to go and read through a few white papers every once in a while, just to kind of keep your knowledge fresh. But, my advice would be to just, figure out where you have an unfair advantage and double down there and really make that your focus. Because, if you try to learn everything, it's going to be harder, I think, to kind of break into the space. You have to be really good at one area and kind of good at everything else.
Sure. I mean, it's very competitive, and only getting more so as the technology picks up. We've been in this trough for a while. So yeah, things are only going to get tougher from here as far as the competition. But anyways, Jordan, is there any last words, last comments you'd like to make before we wrap this up?
No, I just want to say, Evan, Dennis, really appreciate your time. I've enjoyed, being here as a guest. And yeah, for anyone that wants to learn more about Quicknode, it's just quicknode.com. We make it really easy for developers to read from and write to the blockchain. If you're a startup that's building in Web3 or a startup that's thinking about building in Web3, please reach out, ecosystem@quicknode.com. And then I'm Dr. Quick on Telegram. So let us know what we can do to help support you, and we're here to help you build.
All right, well, Jordan, aka Dr. Quick, thank you again so much for coming on. I think a great conversation. Quicknode is an awesome company. Super cool to hear about some of the stuff you guys are doing. And yeah, we will leave all of Jordan's information, some information about Quicknode down in the description below. So make sure you guys are checking that out. And this has been the CoinScan team coming at you with cryptocurrent live from the CoinScan offices in Tel Aviv.